People are increasingly reliant on social media, and this provides a way for malicious actors to influence politics, such as Russian bots on Facebook sharing false information, and President Donald Trump is tweeting false claims regarding the election results. This is even more concerning given the fact that lies spread faster than truth on social media. In a study conducted by the University of Michigan, it is found that when a piece of false information is corrected, the number of views the correction post has is lower than that of the original misinformation.
As a result, some social media platforms have taken it upon themselves to fact-check posts from high-profile users, which usually appear as a warning message attached after the original post. For example, the president's claim of winning the election is blatantly labeled false by Twitter. However, it is safe to say that these moves have been highly controversial. For example, Ted Cruz asked during an interview with the CEO of Twitter, "Who the hell elected you?" In view of the continued discussions around this topic, we're going to discuss the moral necessity and legality of fact-checking public officials on social media.
Websites were protected under the Communication Decency Act and related provisions, which was introduced in 1996. In short, websites were given almost free rein to moderate the content distributed over their platforms and cannot be faulted for the failure to remove label or untruthful information. Attempting to restrict social media's power, President Trump has issued an executive order requesting the FCC to define exceptions to this freedom. However, experts say that, being so vague in content, the executive order likely doesn't have enough legal ground to survive court challenge, which has already been lodged by tech giants in the US. As the executive order is not a direct attempt to strike down the Communications Decency Act and related provisions, social media companies still have autonomy over the content shared across their networks, if the executive order is upheld by the court. On the other hand, this freedom may be restricted by the introduction of accompanying legislation in the future.
An informed and educated public is essential for democracy. Without truth, free will can be easily manipulated by demagogues, putting the society at risk. An extreme but accurate example is Nazi Germany, which is responsible for the loss of millions of lives.
Traditional media facilitates public education by filtering the claims made by government officials through fact-checking. Social media allows officials to circumvent this filter by providing a platform of direct interaction. In this sense, fact-checking by social media is only restoring previous practices.
Critics argue that giving social media companies this unchecked power can lead to abuse, in which the companies selectively target posts or political groups that do not align with their political interests. They don't even have to lie about their fact-checking. Simply turning a blind eye to posts from the favored political party will make the other party look disproportionately bad.
Even if the companies are not politically motivated, questions remain if they are able to discern truth from fiction, given that the employees of tech giants likely do not represent the population structure of the nation, and thus there will be inherent bias in determining what's the truth in events that are not clear-cut.
For example, in an interview with Eddie Barkin, Joe Biden expressed favoritism towards redirecting some funding from the police departments in the US. Because the question is vague, Republican networks interpreted his response as the approval to defund police departments, while Democratic networks argued the context of the answer does not imply this interpretation.
Recognize that the traditional media also has bias, and that was somewhat accepted by the society. As shown in the bar chart, different fact-checking websites are referenced by networks in different frequencies. The relationship is more revealing if we examine the political leaning of the fact-checking websites themselves. We see that networks likely reference sites that align with their political opinions.
However, it is noteworthy that the majority of Americans believe that social media platforms favor liberals over conservatives, as the infographic shows. This is distinctly different from the situation in traditional media outlets, where there are companies on both ends of the spectrum. Even if these companies carry bias, at least there will be representations from both sides.
In addition, from an economic standpoint, it's unlikely that social media companies will abuse this power. Whether diving or not, discussion happening on their platforms bring potential revenue through advertisement or other means. Pushing these viewers away from the platform breeds competition.
Besides appending a warning message, Twitter in particular has also removed the accounts of repeated offenders from search suggestions, but their accounts still remain visible if a full search is performed. Critics argue that this move hampered the spread of their ideas and have violated their rights to free speech.
Technically, the right to free speech outlined in the Constitution only protects the right of making the speech in the first place, not the right to be heard or the right to be free from legal troubles after the speech. In this sense, the fact-checking actions of social media giants are within their legal rights.
In addition, the aforementioned Communications Decency Act and the related provisions give websites the freedom to moderate the content appearing on their sites. So although removing accounts from search suggestions does sound like a violation of the spirit of the common carriage obligation, there is nothing legally binding unless the executive order targeting the legislation survives court challenges. Moreover, the big-name social media giants are not even all the platforms out there, much less the only communication conduits. Even if the accounts are flat-out banned due to terms of service violations, there are still other ways to connect with audiences. Perhaps one could build a blog, and ISPs are bound by law to not restrict traffic. But wait. In closing, we note that some argue that explicitly marking a presidential candidate's posts as fabricated influences voters' opinions and technically influences the election. However, democracy dies in darkness. A voter base informed with facts is fundamental to the success of democracy. As such, stopping disinformation is a corrective measure and not a manipulative tactic.